thanks for coming down today. It's Deciduous Shrub Day. So I'll stand here and squint with the sun facing on me, but we'll try to get out of here pretty quick. It's going to get warm in here a little bit, I think, when the sun's out. So shade cloth has not been put up on the roof yet. It'll happen this week. It was 1 week too late. So we thought it'd be kind of a little different this year. We always do a shrub class at some point in spring, but really kind of focusing on deciduous shrubs. So little shrubs that lose their leaves for the winter. You'll see on the handout there, everything's kind of listed, evergreen, deciduous. It'll kind of give you some of our favorite shrubs across the board for sun, for shade, for part sun, part shade. But we're focused on the ones I highlighted yellow. So we're kind of talking a little bit more on the deciduous side of things today. Certainly nothing wrong with any of the evergreen choices, but I think a lot of people, this is a common thing we get at the nursery, they want everything to be evergreen at all times in their yard. And of course, evergreen doesn't mean I'm green forever. We still drop leaves, but that seems to be the problem, is no one wants to clean up any leaves in the fall. They make great mulch, they add to the soil. You should have fall color some places in your yard. So certainly if you like to enjoy the fall season, deciduous shrubs are going to do something a little bit spring, something different in summer, and then something in fall when we get some color. So we'll hopefully show you maybe a couple you haven't seen today, and then some of the newer choices for some of our standard deciduous shrubs as well. Now before we get on to kind of some of the different stuff here, I'm going to bring up these two things. So I brought up a rose, which is obviously a deciduous shrub. There's going to be no longer blooming in the summertime fragrant flower than doing a rose. So we're going to call that as part of the class today, but don't forget roses. I teach separate classes on rose, so we're not going to talk about those today, but you can check our schedule. We'll have a little rose class here again pretty quick. But I don't want to forget about it, because that's the longest blooming sun deciduous shrub you're going to find. I mean, they're going to start here mid-late May, and I'm going to have color all the way until we get frost. So don't forget about roses. The other one is hydrangea. And again, we deal with specific classes on hydrangeas coming up in the coming weeks. There'll be 2 of them, one here later May, and then another one in the summertime. But as these leaf out, again, for sun, PG hydrangeas, and then for shade or part shade, the lace caps or the mop head hydrangea, nothing is going to bloom as long as these plants on the table right now. So everything else has a nice 6-week bloom, great fall color, none of that changes. But if I'm going for flower power, it's going to be hydrangea and it's going to be rose. If we've talked deciduous, those are going to bloom by far the longest time. Okay, so we'll do those at a different class, but I thought I'd start with that at the beginning here, just so we can get the easy part over with. All right. So if I'll kind of try to follow the list I have here. If you want to kind of ask any questions about each plant, we can do that kind of as we go today. That'd be probably the easiest thing to do. So if I flip to that next page there, you know, I see some deciduous shrubs highlighted yellow, kind of starting with the aronia. So does anyone know aronia? We don't have those in quite yet, but that's our choke cherry. So they'd be blooming here in spring. Great little black or red small fruits for the birds. That's a great one for wildlife as we get towards late summer, fall. And it used to be a plant that was just huge. I had one option, you know, to get something that grew 10, 12, 15 feet with age. There's a lot of great dwarf ones now. So we would carry a lot of the blackberried ones in that Lowscape series from Proven Winner. So Lowscape Hedger, Lowscape Mound. Nice plants, spectacular fall color, but now I'm going to have a little 2, maybe 3-foot shrub that's going to have nice spring color for flower, nice clean foliage during the season, and then the added bonus of those beautiful fall color with the berries in the fall to early winter time. So don't forget about that, especially if you kind of like the wildlife in your yard. That's a great choice to kind of help out the little birds too as well. So we'll have the first batch of those this coming week, and we keep those around most of the summer. Not a lot of them, but a few of them most of the summer and all the way through fall. So they'll be pretty quick. Barberry is always a fun one. So yes, they have thorns on them. They're not crazy. Some are a little bigger than others, but who's got barberry in their yard? And I love it. I got it all over. I wrote about it in the paper a few weeks ago. Could be a security hedge, quote unquote. We want to keep people from climbing through part of our hedge. I got 2 young children, so that makes a perfect plant for underneath the bedroom window, so they can't climb out or no one can climb in, right? That's what my mom did for me back in the day. No, not seriously. So,
and the bees love them.
The bees love them too. So barberry's one. If I look up here, I brought quite a few up because I think you'll see a nice variety of foliage. So we have something like Admiration, Little lower shrub one. If I bring up one like that's Orange Rocket, a little bit taller, I have that one in my yard. I have a few of these in my yard. This is a little dwarf one called Golden Ruby. And then if we want to go bright yellow, we've got Gold Nugget. And then here's a real deep dark one people tend to like called Concord, so a little bit more purple burgundy color. Now, barberry is a plant, spectacular foliage color. So these just are about to bloom or in bloom, which she mentioned, absolutely a great one to get the early pollinators going. So the deciduous ones are going to have little yellow flowers down the wood before the leaves come out. Then I have beautiful colorful foliage. This doesn't go away in the summer. I might get a little more green in the centers, but I'm always going to have that bright foliage on the outside of all of these. We get towards fall, we turn beautiful color again, and then off we go, drop our leaves. We'll see you again the coming spring. If I cut these back in the winter, it's not going to hurt the plant to control the size, but I'm probably going to cut off my flowers. I would rather have you enjoy the bloom, let the bees have some early nectar. Then we can go in early summer and give them a little shear if we want. If I cut these back, the new growth that comes up will be just as colorful again as it was in spring. Okay, so if I want to go taller and a little bit maybe narrower, we would take advantage of something like this Rocket series. So you can find Gold Rocket, we have Orange Rocket. I've got a beautiful kind of combo colored one back there called Orange Torch. So I would have something that comes up and kind of vases out a little bit, but you're talking typically something we can prune to keep you know, kind of our size, maybe 5 or 6 feet. We can certainly prune it back a little bit harder and keep it smaller, but I'm looking for that upright shape, a little bit taller. The other one, I missed one here. This is one of my favorites because I love yellow, but this will kind of be our next phase. Bailey's introduced some beautiful cultivars that will be again in that 3 to 4 foot range. This is one called Limoncello. Got gorgeous orange tips on gold foliage that will be like limier green during the summertime. Then again, beautiful oranges as we get towards fall. Same bloom, same difference, but this would be a little shrubbier if I don't want kind of that vase shape and I'm looking for a little bit fuller shrub. We might take advantage of some of the great barberries from Bailey like Limoncello, or the dark one would be Toscana. We have that out there as well. So that's a very worthwhile plant. This is a popular choice around here with the spring color. That's one of the best foliage ones.
They kind of need to be sun, right?
This is all sun. Yeah, that's where we're on the sun part of this. So if I go shade, they'll still grow a little bit, but then I worry maybe about a little bit of mildew, and we're not going to hold that bright foliage color nearly as long. I've got one of these Golden Rubies in my yard where it just catches most of the day and then part of it gets shaded, and it's always funny in the summer. I've got kind of limey green with a little bit of red, and the side that gets all the sun is bright red, just like that. So it's kind of a fun little look for me. But the more sun, better the foliage color. These are all pretty good drought tolerant too, and that's something I know with the dry winter this year, a little less snowpack. We're going to probably see the D word getting used here around the area here for the spring summer season for us in Washington. I never think we're going to run out of water, so I'm not worried about that. But we do have to be a little conscious about it. So the dwarf stuff's going to be in front here. So Golden Nugget, probably the smallest one up here. Might get just a foot and a half tall, bright yellow, a little bit more shade, again limey colored on that one. And then we have that Golden Ruby, which is my favorite, so super tight. I've got some of those in my yard that are about 20 years old, you know, and I've got a plant that's only about that tall and maybe 2.5, 3 feet across. So great color, nice and flower again, but great foliage color through the season. When we get warmer, we're going to see a little golden edge kind of on top of that red, which to me is pretty cool for the heat of the season. We get a little warmer, I get a little more color on them that way too. If I want to go dark, we do Concord. And then if I want red, again, the Golden Ruby, and then we do the Golden Nugget for yellow. And then this is one of the staff favorites, Admiration, which I think is very close to Golden Ruby, honestly. Maybe just a little bit larger growing and a little bit faster, but I would still see that really bright red with that golden edge on it as we get into the summer months as well, okay? So barberry, very easy. I think a nice little flower. They aren't that thorny. I can touch it and I won't bleed. I'll probably put some gloves on but before I do a whole lot of pruning on them. But it's not as bad as you think. A lot of people are like, I don't want any thorns, but it is a sweet foliage plant for deciduous. Okay. If we kind of go down to that next one there, I don't have these in quite yet, but you see that calycanthus is highlighted. Has anyone had allspice in their yard? That's a little bit different shrub too. So that's where we would get our allspice from. An interesting flower, kind of burgundy red usually. Nice little size shrub. Again, great fall color. We like those because they take a little bit different soil. So sometimes calycanthus we can get away with a little bit wetter ground, but they're very manageable as far as size. And definitely something different. You'll see when they come in here pretty quick, a little bit later spring to early summer bloom, but a totally different flower with a pretty unique fragrance on those as well. So that'll be here pretty soon. Crepe myrtles is a plant I thought I'd probably never be talking about much in Washington. I brought one up here. We're getting a lot of these in this season because they're just leafing out now that we're getting warm. But crepe myrtle was always a plant. We just weren't quite warm enough in the summer to get to bloom. This is something around here is going to be July, August. Really pretty flowers. The last probably 3 years in a row, I see them blooming everywhere. So we're going to start carrying a little bit more crepe myrtle. It's a really useful plant. Spectacular fall color, really cool bark as they get older. I think they look best kind of growing as multi-stems like this, shrubs. You know, we could almost call this a small tree sometimes, or a large shrub, but there's great dwarfs. I mean, I can kind of pick, you know, 4 or 5 feet all the way up to 10 or 12 feet if I was looking for a manageable yard specimen that, again, gives me great fall color, really nice bark in the winter, and a big, bright flower depending on my colors I want. We can do purples, pinks, reds, whites, dark leaf, real purple dark leaf ones now. You can see this one's green with some nice new growth color on it. But some pretty useful crepe myrtles that are drought tolerant again, for full sun. Not a tree you're gonna have to do a whole lot of maintenance on if you want to try a little crepe myrtle. We're probably about 2 weeks out. So now that they're leafing out finally, we're gonna have a whole bunch of this out in the shrub yard. You'll see quite a bit of that as we get into mid-May and then over the summer as far as choices for the garden, okay? So that's a little crepe myrtle. We've got deciduous azaleas. Now again, I put them on sale for you guys for the class, so you get first crack at them because Rhodey Azalea Weekend's here in about 2 weeks. But we do carry some really cool deciduous azaleas. If anybody doesn't know that, that's the way we get orange. If you drive around and you see deciduous azaleas in bloom, that's the one thing we will get a true pumpkin orange or a true yellow. There's no evergreen azalea Rhodey that's going to give us that same color at all. It's always going to be the deciduous type. So I brought a couple up just to kind of show you. They're just waking up for the year. The nice thing with these is I can also add fragrance. We get quite a few of them in that smell delicious. So this is one in particular, one of kind of a cultivar of our native western azalea called Irene Coster. So this will be that light pink, little yellow, some white in there. But that's going to smell delicious here while it's blooming through late April into May. So that's Irene. I've always got to bring the orange. If you look at that picture there, that is orange. So this is Gibraltar. That's probably the #1 asked for thing here in about 2 weeks. Everyone's like, what is that orange thing I see around? I want one of those. We got a bunch right now, and in 2 weeks I won't have any, and this is not something I can get again. So if you want orange, go grab one of those today and take the discount on. There's also a lot of other ones. So we try quite a bit of deciduous. You'll see this great series of deciduous azaleas, the light series. We get quite a few different ones of this. This is Electric Lights Red. We've got a double pink. We've got a tangerine one out there. And then again, another orange one. So probably the difference is with these versus Gibraltar, if I'm looking for a big 6 foot tall specimen deciduous azalea, I probably get a good X-berry like this one. If I want something maybe 3 or 4 feet, a little bit bushier, I'm going to take a look at some of those light series azaleas out there as well. Okay, so a great choice. We'll have, again, Rhodey Azalea Weekends coming up here in a couple weeks, but that's always the week most of that stuff gets cleaned out, so you get first crack at them today because we got a pretty good. The one I didn't bring in, I probably should have, is if you like white, there's a fabulous white one out there called Fragrant Star. Pure white flower, really nice plant, but it is incredible smell, like almost gardenia-like. So really heavy fragrance on that particular one. Okay. Deutzia is kind of an old-fashioned plant. think I brought one in here somewhere. Oh, right behind me. So they're just getting ready to bloom. You can see all the little flower buds coming in. This is one from Proven Winners called Yuki Cherry Blossom. We've got some Nico. We get some other colors of Deutzia in here. This is a plant 30 years ago. You bought Deutzia, it kind of had a little bit of a wild creature. They were pretty big. Nothing was really small. We probably had to prune to contain them. With modern breeding, much tidier plants, and frankly, we can add a lot of foliage color in them too. So like this is a green leafed one with a really nice bicolor flower. We get Chardonnay pearls, would be lime yellow foliage with white flowers coming out on it. We've got some green Nico out there, which is just green with bright white bloom. But you can find some pretty cool Deutzias out there, again, for sun, pretty manageable size in the garden. It's not going to take over a huge area. And certainly a little different flower. A lot of people are looking for, everybody's got one of those. Give me something a little different. I don't think a lot of people take advantage of some of the cool Deutzias we have to offer. There's that one. I would put Deutzia on the drought tolerant list. Yeah, that'd be again, not a massive amount of water. And none of this stuff's ever going to need watering every day. That's what I was kind of chuckling. In the heat of the summer here, I might be out 2, maybe 3 times a week. If I give it a little drink, I'm good for a few days. It's not like it's got to get done every day.
What's the height on that Deutzia?
So most of this new stuff, like that one, you're talking something more like waist level, maybe in that 3-foot size or so. Yeah, pretty manageable and easy. We always prune after bloom is always my rule. So we let them bloom and do their thing. If I do want to keep it smaller, give it a light prune. You'd be fine doing that. Okay. You'll see the currants are in bloom right now. Thought I had one. There he is. You can see him over there. The hummingbird didn't come in here to take any nectar yet, so that's our native, red flowering currant. We tend to get the cultivar of that King Edward VII is what most nurseries have. But I've got that beautiful early spring flower. If you've had a large currant, that's a really good pollinator magnet. And we're trying to keep the hummingbirds happy early in the season and get the bees going. That's one of the best choices if you got a little bit of room to grow. This is not a little 3-foot by 3-foot plant, but probably something more like 6 feet tall, 8 feet wide kind of plant. We can absolutely prune it after bloom again to keep it down a little bit, but this is one I want to give a little bit of room to grow. I think the folks that do a little bit more on the native side or have green belts near their yard, this mixes in really nicely in a little sunny spot where you can get some flower. It looks native again because corn is up here, but really cool spring color. Yeah, that's a great little shrub. The next one on there, I didn't bring a forsythia in. Does everyone know forsythia? Probably don't have to talk about that one. There's our early yellow. Those are already done blooming. What I would say on forsythia is look at some of the new ones. We pretty much only carry magical gold anymore. It's a little bigger flower, really nice yellow for early, but don't be bashful with the pruners. I think forsythia gets a bad name because people walk away for 10 years and it gets archy and takes over half the yard. If these bloom, it's all about 1-year-old wood. So I could really cut my forsythia back hard every single year when it's done flowering, because all the wood that grows up that summer blooms the next year. And I can just kind of play that cycle game season to season and keep it much more manageable. There's also some newer dwarf ones. So look around and you can find ones that maybe don't get 6 or 8 feet tall, but again, more like 3 or 4 feet, much more manageable in size. I think lilacs is probably another one that doesn't need much introduction. We could probably smell the lilac I brought in here today. I brought a Sensation in. Let me borrow him. So we have a lot of options for lilacs these days. I brought a couple. Now this is an old French one called Sensation. That's got a really pretty letter, really pretty flower with the 2 colors on it. But we've got purples, we've got blues, we got pinks, we got whites, we got every color in the rainbow out there. But look at your labels. There's nothing wrong with old French type lilac, Syringa vulgaris. I get pretty tall. If you've had lilac kind of trees in the yard, I think mine in the backyard are probably 15 feet. So if you got room for it, great. That's a great specimen plant to grow. But look around at the dwarfs. There's a lot of dwarf lilacs around that'll give me the same exact fragrance. And there's a lot more of that coming onto the market these days. We've got dwarf white ones out there. I think this is Little Lady. We've got Little Darling. We have Little Miss. We got a little everything out there. The other one I didn't bring in is the bloomerang. Has anyone tried any of those? So bloomerang lilacs, well, proven winners, which we carry purple and a couple colors, that's going to bloom twice a year. So same fragrance, a little bit smaller flower, but same attractive fragrance, much smaller in size. And I'm going to have flowering now. I'll have a little bit of growth, and then I get bloom again, like late August, September. So I'll have 2 bloom cycles a year, which is kind of cool for lilac options. So don't forget about old-fashioned lilacs. Again, that's a popular Mother's Day purchase here in the next few weeks. Now is probably maximum selection, or pretty close. So if you're in for a lilac, look around at what you can grab, and grab it before Mother's Day, because whatever has a flower on a Mother's Day weekend's gone. And again, some of these I tend not to be able to get again and again and again during the season. Okay, so great lilac options out there. I'll put this one up here by you so you can smell it the rest of the class. Mock orange is the same way. You know, I grew up at my place as a kid with mock orange that literally buried the garage. If you had old-fashioned mock orange, it arched out, it got huge. You were talking something 10, 12, even 15 feet tall. We don't even carry those anymore. We carry quite a few mock orange, but some fabulous dwarf ones. Oops, right in front of me. So we have a number of these still to come in. This is the first one here, just leafing out. These would have white flowers, super fragrant again in May. So we're just a few weeks away before we start to see the flower buds come out. This is a brand new one that we got in called Swan Lake. We've got some of these out there right now. I'm telling you, we tried these last year as a sample. It smells exactly like the most delicious can of grape soda you've ever opened in your life. If you want flower, you're like, it's like, that smells like a can of Welch's grape or some collector old-fashioned grape soda. We also get other ones in, like Snow White. We get a native one called Blizzard in, if you like the native plants again, our native mock orange from the Northwest. But we pretty much carry dwarfs. So we've got Snow Bells, another one. So double white flowers, super fragrant. This particular one's more single, if you can see the picture. But all great smell and all more manageable for the yard. We've kind of turned something that got 10 or 12 feet into something that gets more like 4, 5, 6 feet tall every year. So same thing as we've talked about with a lot of these deciduous plants, old wood bloom. So if I prune this, I'm going to let it bloom, and then I'm going to prune it back a little bit so that I can recover over the summer. If I cut these hard back in the winter time, I'll sacrifice a little bit of my flowering for that next season. Okay, so that just came in. We got the first batch of those in. If you like grape soda, make sure you get that Swan Lake. It was delicious. A couple different things. Has anyone ever seen Pearl Bush? Got a couple. There we go. We got a couple who've seen it. I got to get him out of here carefully because he's in bloom. Let's see if we can get him out of there without getting too much damage. So that's a fun little spring bloomer that's a little bit different. You know, this is one called the Bride. This is Exocorda is what we call this if we were speaking Latin. But really cool old-fashioned plant. I mean, you see those little flower buds look like little strings of pearls. Then when it opens up, I've got a beautiful little white flower for spring. So this is one that kind of arches out a little bit. Again, we can control the size with a little pruning, but typically this would be, again, a shrub that's about as big as me or a little bit larger as a nice specimen here for a little flower color in April into early May. So something a little different. A lot of people see these and go, wow, I've never seen one of those before. And again, I've got 7, 8, 9 of them right now because they're flowering. When they're gone for the year. This is not a plant we can get a whole bunch of here at the nursery. So maybe you consider a little bit of that pearl bush for you.
If it gets as tall as you, how wide does it get?
It'll get about the same width, but again, I've got kind of that trunk that comes up and that little kind of weeping appearance when the flowers come out. So yeah, the easy one to prune the size a little bit. I don't have any quince left. That's the next one there that's highlighted, but I think most folks know quince. Those are probably just about done blooming now. Towards the end, they come out really early. For us, we tend to carry that double take series. So we would have double take orange, double take scarlet, double take pink. I can kind of get a little more manageable plant with those, and they have way less thorns than our old-fashioned quince do. Old-fashioned quince was some pretty good thorns, not the little ones on barberry, but some spikes on there. So we tend to avoid maybe the old ones that get a little bigger too, these new style quints, really heavy blooming, much more manageable in size, and I don't have to bleed quite as bad when I'm out there pruning mine back every year. So I'm an orange guy, so I have the double take orange. I love those. But again, just a little bit after bloom. We are sold out, but I will get some more here pretty quick, because we like to keep a few around in the summer and the fall as well. So mark us down for a quince if you're still looking for one. I think one of the most versatile shrubs I use in my yard, and I think a lot of people know spirea. Everyone got a little spirea? So this is a no-brainer shrub to me. They need a little bit of water in the summer. This is not a drought-tolerant thing, but I have got a zillion options for leaf color, for bloom, for growth habit, small, tiny, big, white, old, new. The coolest thing to me with spirea is just a no-brainer pruning. Besides the old-fashioned like bridal wreath, this is something every year in my yard will get 3 feet tall, 3 feet wide, and every time this time of year it's a little clump of twigs about 8 inches out of the ground. Then it starts over again and we get bloom instantly. So this is a great new wood bloomer as far as a shrub, but spectacular foliage. If I want to add a little touch of foliage, these will all start blooming here a little later, April, May. And I'll tell you what I do with mine, a little trick, is the spireas will always bloom twice. So if I take just a minute in early summer when these are done blooming with their first bloom and just shear them back lightly, I got brand new colorful leaves like spring, and then I get a whole nother flower set on there. So I'll typically get bloom on mine, you know, late April, May, early June, and then again in August, September. So you can double your bloom on spirea by pruning it back a little bit when it's done with that first bloom, okay? So these are a few dwarf ones. This is a brand new one called Butterscotch. So really cool color from Monrovia that we just got in. This is one from the Bloomin' Easy series. I think this was Pop Rocks. Yeah, that's a great name, like old Pop Rocks. So that's a really small leafed one I thought was really attractive with the pink flower. We've got those in. And this is my favorite. I love yellow, but this is you. I call it You Glow Girl because it's called Glow Girl. So this one I have the lime chartreuse foliage, a really nice white flower. And this is a great example. A lot of people fight deer up here. So this is what we would call birch leaf spirea, a little different species. This is one the deer don't touch. So even in eastern Washington, we had a place over there, the elk didn't touch our hedge. I've got family in Ellensburg. This is one of the few shrubs I sent them over from our place to plant along the front bed because the deer don't touch it, the animals don't touch it, takes the heat, super hardy, and really easy to grow if we just give it a little bit of water time in the drier summer, okay? So there's a couple, we got a bunch of them out there. There's a whole bunch of options for orange, lime, green, different heights, and we can go red, kind of a reddish, or pink, or white flower. So there's quite a bit out there to choose from for easy spireas. That's a really pretty one for fall color as well. If you've got spirea in your yard and we don't let it dry out late summer, you get some really good fall color on spirea as well. I just will have sweet spire this week. Has anyone tried a sweet spire or itea? So that's a really fragrant flower. That's one of my favorite shrubs. I wish more people tried them because we don't sell very many a year. But I think gardeners have figured out it takes some wet, which is really nice. If you have a little bit of heavier soil, itea will thrive in that. It turns like burning bush red for fall color, so great fall color on it. But I get these white flower spikes here in May to June that smell delicious. So it's really pretty in flower, really nice fall color, and a really easy plant to grow. They've got some funny names. There's a whole bunch of them now that are kind of on the dwarf side, about 3, maybe 4 feet tall again. We have like Fizzy Mizzy is the new one this year. Last year it was the Love Child, which I'm not sure what that has to do with the itea, but we have some options, and we will have a couple varieties of those in here just another week or so for a little spring bloom. We could probably have a whole class on viburnums. If you know viburnums, there's a massive amount of choice. So I just brought one in, but look at that list there and look at your options. I mean, I can get a deciduous shrub viburnum that's a specimen, small tree, something narrow, 9 feet tall, 5 feet, you know, any height. There's a lot of options for viburnums these days. That would be, to me, one of the top fall color plants, especially if I'm going for reds and burgundies. That's a really nice fall color plant, no matter which one you get. And there's a lot of them now that bloom much longer than just one season. So I brought up one here. I thought I brought one. Oh, it's in the back corner. So you can see this one, the buds are coming out. And you can see they're always in pairs on that. That's what we call double file viburnum. So beautiful white lace cap flowers. You get little pairs of them down the whole branches. As that grows, that's a specimen to me. I'm not trying to prune that into a little ball in my yard. I see those driving around all over. Don't prune it, please. That's an 8-foot by 8-foot specimen. So I'm looking for a big deciduous shrub. It's not quite tree proportion, but something I'll have really nice layered branching on, really nice red fall color, and then the nice bloom here as we go May, June. So that's a great example of one. If we get a different variety, like there's one called Summer Snowflake, looks just like that, but now I repeat flower all summer. So if you like that double file, you want a little bit smaller plant, Summer Snowflake maybe 6-7 feet tall, I would have the same flowers, but I would bloom, wait a couple weeks, and I would bloom again. So we would bloom a couple of times over the summer months with those same white cup flowers. But again, you can look at the viburnum there. I mean, we're talking about snowball bush. We're talking about bottom intense, like the dawn viburnums that smell good and bloom through the winter. We've got Birkwood out there. There's all kinds of viburnums on the property. It's some options for size again and shape. There's even a couple evergreen viburnums we use around here as well. But certainly, I think a worthwhile shrub. Probably in our shrub section, Spireas and viburnum, probably the most choice, you know, as far as size, different species, different color, and a lot of those will get some pretty cool berries on them as well if you give them some time. Everybody asked for Wigglia. That last one was really Weigelia, but everyone says, do you have any Wigglia plants? So we always smile because we call it that now too. So Wigglia is one of my favorites for pollinators. If I'm getting a shrub for this bloom here in May, late April, May into June, there's some really cool Weigelias out on the market these days. I brought just a couple in. We've got a whole bunch out there. I just brought 2. But I mean, I can go dark purple leaf, variegated leaf, green leaf. I've got golden foliage ones. But I'm always going to have that real hot trumpet colored flower. Some bloom white or light pink. We tend to get a lot of the ones that are more hot pink to red. So that's a favorite of the hummingbirds, an absolute favorite of the bees. That's one of the higher nectar plants for bees this time of year. And again, a lot of the newer ones, it's not, I remember growing up again, my grandmother had one of these that buried the garage. I mean, Weigelia was just a big plant that was super bushy. All this stuff's a totally different creature. I mean, you can pick something 2 feet tall, 3 feet tall, 4 feet tall, easy to prune, and I'm always gonna get color, and I'm always gonna have some nice foliage as well. Probably the dark leafed ones tend to be the most popular these days. This is a little small one called Spilled Wine. If I look at that picture in bloom right there, you can see not much height, but I'm gonna have a nice kind of sprawling shrub with dark foliage, and again, that hot colored flower on there. One different Weigelia that we will have again, we've already sold out, I got more coming. There's a couple different ones in this series they call Sonic Bloom. So that's the one Weigelia that would bloom now, again, colorful leaves, and then bloom again. So if I wanted to double my flower, we would buy Sonic Bloom Red, Sonic Bloom Pink, Sonic Bloom Pearl. There's a few varieties of that, different colors, but I would lengthen my flower season as well, okay? So there's a little Wigglia, we always say, right? Get a little Wigglia time. Now, if we go into the kind of part shade to shade, now this could be, you know, morning sun, it could be a little bit of afternoon sun late in the day, but it's not the spots that probably have sun, you know, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's going to be a little bit warm kind of for this next section. We want to give a little bit of shade to some of these, especially when we get to the drier summer months. So maybe a plant you haven't seen as much of is that first one there, this bush honeysuckle. So this is something we started doing pretty heavily the last few years. You know, I wouldn't use the word maybe bulletproof with a lot of plants. This would be one of them. We'd probably get pretty close to bulletproof. These are really easy to grow. They're super hardy. No issues at all. Bugs, disease, they grow shade, they grow some sun, they take some wet, they take some dry, they take just about anything. So for a filler plant, it's been a popular choice for a lot of gardeners. Like, you know what? I got specimens all over my yard. I'm looking for something I can plant 3 or 5 of and eat up an area with nice foliage, easy maintenance. This might be a great choice for you. This is the one called Kodiak Fresh. It's got some nice colored new leaves on it, and these will bloom with the little yellow honeysuckle flowers here early summer. Spectacular fall color. These are all great for fall color. We have dark leafed ones coming in for the first time here in a couple weeks on these. That's a brand new thing this year. But I could pick orange, I could pick red, I can pick dark leaf, I can pick all those color tones, whatever your taste is, and I can buy the appropriate bush honeysuckle to match that. So not just fall color, but again, spring. This one's a little bit different with limey, kind of golden foliage in the summer, but you'll see Kodiak Orange would be much more orange in color right now. Kodiak Red would be all red in color right now. So we can kind of pick our foliage that way and have something, again, really easy to grow as kind of a nice little filler shrub. Okay? The next one's one of my favorites, Fothergilla. I think I brought one in here. I thought I did. Oh, right behind me. So these are just starting to do their thing. I wish more people tried these because I think this is, again, a shrub for all seasons. The flowers are just starting right now. It looks like a little bottle brush. They smell delicious. It's a little white color. If you can look at that tag, that's the reason I fell in love with Fothergilla. The fall color would be second to none. If I've got a specimen of this, that thing just glows in the fall. But it has really nice bloom. It's not native here. I don't want to mislead you by saying that, but I think most people that have Fothergilla plant it and it looks very native. It's got that native look. It likes very similar conditions to our natives up here. And I think it's really easy to grow. So if you wanted something different, this is a plant to me. It's got clean foliage, not real issues, fragrant flower here in the spring, and a really nice fall color. That's an excellent deciduous shrub. Yeah, hopefully we sell more than 5. That's pretty much all we get asked for every year, because that's a worthwhile one to try.
What kind of size does it get?
These are all the dwarf Fothergilla. So again, the species would be a pretty good sized plant. This would be dwarf, the garden variety, so probably 4 or 5 feet tall is about all. And again, there's some smaller ones out there too. We get some blue-leafed ones in. I just got a brand new one I'm trying in called Epstein, and it's only going to get about 1.5 feet. It's blooming too, but it's a miniature one with small leaves and that same flower on it. So I'm kind of playing around with that here this year for the first time as well. Okay. We flip pages here. What else did I highlight here? You see a bunch of good evergreens. Now, the last one there for the shade is going to be that winter hazel. Now, I don't know if anybody has, like, witch hazel's a little bit different. That's a great choice too. But winter hazel's a little bit different. This is our Coreolopsis. So we would have what they call spike winter hazel. That would be a little bit bigger, something maybe 8 feet by 8 feet. But that would be in full bloom in March. Like they would just be getting done about now. We'd have yellow flowers out on bare wood, and then again, really nice fall color. But that's a great specimen choice if we have that, again, part shade or morning sun garden. And even the golden leafed one is even prettier. If you like a little foliage color, the golden spike winter hazel is always going to be bright yellow, and then again, turning color in the fall, but the same early yellow flowers as well. The smaller one is buttercup. And so that's what we have here on our property. A lot of folks drive by the road here in March and we get emails like, you got something blooming out front. What is that thing? It's beautiful. It's that buttercup winter hazel right in the corner of the nursery out there. And that would be much smaller, like half the size as the spike winter hazel. So a little bit more manageable in size. Now, that's kind of some blooming options, but I always put a little bit of foliage stuff on here. And all this stuff, almost every plant blooms, and everything's got nice foliage, so we could almost swap this around a little bit. But if I look at that sun part shade, again, I've got barberry on there. Yes, I get a nice flower on that early in the season, but I'm mainly buying barberry because I want the foliage color. I got green, 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 green. I want some yellow, I want some orange, I want some purple, I want some red. I can get some nice foliage color on that as a deciduous shrub by picking a cool barberry. The second one there, elderberry, gets a really nice flower. Anybody got any of the ornamental elderberries? Yeah, I do too. And that's one that's got great flower on it here too later spring, but again, it's kind of known more for its foliage. So I brought a couple up here. We get a lot of these in. This is a popular shrub choice. So I can see some sweet colors coming out on those deciduous right now. So Proven Winners does an excellent job breeding these. I'll start with that. And I'm sometimes not the hugest over-marketed Proven Winner guy because they are everywhere these days. But they do have great elderberries. This is one thing they've done a great service, I think, for home gardeners for a lot of years on breeding. So if you know elderberry, we have native elderberry here in Washington. There's certainly nothing wrong with that as a deciduous shrub. These would be ones that maybe complement that on the ornamental side. So I can get gold foliage again, I can get dark black foliage again, I got variegated ones out there, or we can just do green. It's up to what you like in your yard. But these would all get a really nice big flower again, great for the pollinators. If I have two different varieties, they'll actually pollinate and I'll get the berries on there, which the birds will enjoy too. So something we can help our wildlife out a little bit. If we have the right ones in the yard, they will actually get the berries for the birds. But these are ones I can prune certainly easy enough to keep them small, but there's gonna be choices as far as size. Now I had black lace before. This is a big one. You know, we've had one on the road out here. We don't prune it. We can prune it if we want. If we don't prune it, it's probably reached up there in the 10-12 foot range. So big specimen plant, big flower, dark black foliage, okay? The gold one's a little bit more manageable. That's a lemony lace. So that would give me a nice bright lime gold foliage. That one maybe a little bit of part shade even would have that foliage glow a little bit more. And then this is the new one. I actually swapped out my black lace because I didn't want this. I wanted this. So I had room for the height, but I was like, okay, I'm just a little bit bushy. So I replaced mine a couple years ago with this new one they call Laced Up. So now I have the foliage color I want, the bloom I want, but now I've got the height with something narrow, so I don't have to eat up my yard side to side. So you can take combinations, low, bushy, tall, narrow. There's a gold narrow called Golden Tower. We've got all the different elderberries out there if you'd like to do a little elderberry shrub for an option, okay? So we've got some good ones of those. What do we got next there? I should have probably highlighted Euonymus. You'll see it on there, the next one that I didn't highlight. The one good deciduous option for Euonymus is, of course, the burning bush. So if you've had burning bush, that is burning in the fall. I'm all about fall color. That's a really easy, no-brainer shrub around here that turns electric red in the fall. We get dwarf burning bush, which is in the burning bush world, dwarf means about 8 feet by 8 feet. So be careful. You can prune them very easily. They make nice hedges or specimens. But the smaller one we would have out there is one called Cole's Compact. That's the one I have in my yard. I'll probably cut that in half, and that's a little more manageable as far as size for some people. But we certainly can't do the deciduous class without mentioning burning bush. That's about as good as it gets for fall color. That next page there's a few. So has anyone tried 9 barks yet, the Physocarpus? That's one of my favorite shrubs these days. I've got 1, 2, 3 now, and I'm about to add another one because I got some new ones I can't say no to. That's a plant for all seasons if you ask me. It's got really cool peely bark in the wintertime. We get a really nice flower again here later spring for the pollinators. That gets kind of an interesting little red seed on it, when the flowers mature. But this one again, the bloom's nice, the bark's nice, the growth's nice, but I'm about the foliage color. I want to have some different foliage going in the yard. So we have native 9 barks in the Pacific Northwest again. We find those out hiking all over the place. That's a little different than these. These are eastern 9 barks, but like the same similar conditions. So all this will be for sun or part sun, but certainly some options as far as color. So if I want to go big, and big in the 9 bark world's probably like 6 or 8 feet when we get an old plant, that's an impressive shrub specimen for deciduous. We can go dark black, purple foliage, I can go red, or I can get something. I just put one of these in a few years ago because I like the orangey amber color. This is Amber Jubilee. We would have Fireside out there, a really dark purple foliage one. If you like that color, there's some options for some good tall ones that would give you the color you want. The newest thing here, the last few years, is a lot of dwarfs. So some people are like, love the plant, I just don't have 6, 8 feet of room. I'd like something more like 4 or 5 feet tall. So we've got some really good options for those these days. They've got kind of funny names, but it started with Little Devil. So that would be the dark foliage. This is the new one now, Spicy Devil. So I'm gonna have a little more coppery foliage on that. The brand new one this year is called Honeycomb. I've been looking for a yellow foliage 9-bark that won't burn. And that's the one they've tested out for a number of years at Bailey Nurseries, their first edition program. We've got some honeycomb out there. We tried it last summer and didn't get any burn in full sun. So again, I can do the part sun, part shade is fine. A little bit more sun is going to give me the darker colors on a lot of those deep foliage ones. Certainly the honeycomb I could have in part sun, part shade for some yellow lime, or a little bit sun for more of a bright yellow color. But we got some great 9-barks out there. I think that's a really useful shrub for a lot of people. Very little maintenance, very easy to prune, and super cold hardy. This is stuff we could grow up into Canada towards the Arctic Circle. Bailey's is located in Minnesota, so that should tell you, right? A little bit hardier plant than most around here. We're going from the table to the ground to make it easy. Smoke bush, I didn't bring any in because they're just leafing out now. That's always one always makes me kind of laugh, because you would say smoke bush, I would say smoke tree. It kind of depends on how you want to prune it. That's really what it comes down to. If I buy traditional smoke bush or smoke tree, cotinus, and I don't prune it, I've seen those 15, 20 feet tall, you know, to be really honest. Other folks prune it, looks like a smoke bush, same plant, same great leaf color, nothing changes, but it's much more manageable. So cotinus would be drought tolerant. That's a pretty good shrub for heat and drought. And again, I can go dark purple, I can get green, I can go gold. There's a great one out there called Golden Spirit. It's bright yellow. They've got those little puffy smoke plume flowers, which are kind of fun. If I do prune mine hard, you won't get as much of the bloom, but that's another one for me. I buy it for the foliage, not necessarily for the flower, so I don't think much of the choice on that. I will say there are some real smoke bushes now that would never get treed. So we get some really cool dwarf ones in here. We just got Velvetini in. So now I have the same purple foliage I want, but in a miniature version. That might only get 3 or 4 feet tall, and that's it. Not going to turn into a tree at all. And then we've got some Winecraft out there for proven winners. So Winecraft Black or Winecraft Gold, and both those would be the same. Bright foliage, deciduous plants, spectacular fall color on all of them, but now I've cut my size down to a more manageable garden size, okay? So certainly some of those out there. Now I brought one in, I was laughing, I think we might have like 8 different twig dogwoods out there for sale this year. So twig dogwood's a native here. You know, if you know, drive around, you see twig dogwood growing in the roadside, the ditch, the swale, the bio swale, all the above. That's one that takes wet. So a lot of customers that struggle with heavy clay or a wetter area, especially in the winter, twig dogwood may solve the bill. You know, this is a plant I was like, yeah, I don't think I'll ever have that in my yard. I have 4 now because I do like them. They're great for the birds. They get nice flower color, nice little berry on it for the birds to eat later in the season. I planted a grove of them for shelter. I wanted the birds to have somewhere to hang out that was native, truly native in the winter months, hide from other birds and all the above. But the reason I brought one in is because I think most people know twig dogwood. Bright twig color, I can have red, I can have yellow, I can pick my color, but I can also pick my size. There's some really great dwarf ones now. We get one called Little Rebel in, just about 2 feet tall is all, much more manageable in size. We get other ones that get huge, 8 feet tall if you want the size on them. But you would pick your bark color and you would pick the foliage. So this is one I have in my yard. This is called Neon Burst. So I would have red twig with golden foliage. It's really pretty in the garden. We could have red twig with variegated foliage, white cream edge, green center. I could have red twig with green foliage. There's nothing wrong with that either. That would be our native one here. And then we could do yellow twig, the same thing, green foliage, or mix our foliage colors up. So look at your option on twig dogwood, because that's one, especially if you've got a wet area, that's a really easy plant to throw, where not a lot of other stuff's going to thrive if we've got a little drainage issue, okay? Then the same idea, I put it right below it on purpose, is the willow. Everyone knows willows. So we have a lot of great native willows here. There's nothing wrong with any of those. But if you're looking for maybe more of an ornamental one, we do carry quite a few willows. You know, nice little seasonal plant. Typically they bloom much earlier. Most of those have catkins out on them here coming out of winter. So for French pussy willow, we've got ground covery ones. We get a great silver foliage one in called Iceberg Alley. The most popular one is the dappled willow or Japanese willow. And these finally are doing their pink thing here as we get into April. We do these in a little patio tree, you know, like a stalk and then a little lollipop on top. That's a popular purchase around here. But native, this would grow as a shrub. So this isn't about bloom at all. This is about foliage color. If I want dappled willow, again, that part sun, part shade, I've got a little wetter ground. I can shear these to control the size. If I let this go, I've probably got a shrub as tall as me and even wider than that. It's a pretty good sized shrub with age. But I can prune this very easily every season. This isn't about any flower, so I'd be walking out, you know, 1st of March and just shearing my twigs back into whatever shape I like. Then off we go with the green, the white, and then the bright pink as we get into the season. So this is another one here in the next 2 weeks. Probably 100 of these walk out the door because people see the pink and go, wow, that's a really cool leaf. Forget about the flower. I'm gonna buy that because I like the foliage color. That's a fun little foliage plant. And speaking of foliage, the last one I think is Deciduous. I thought I brought one. So this isn't a plant you'll see around, especially this one. I think I've only got 8, and when they're gone, they're gone. But Deciduous is an old shrub I can hardly find anymore, even the green one. Again, at the top of the fall color totem pole. Deciduous is a relative of a few different plants like katsura trees, a couple other things, but a manageable size shrub, easy growth, clean leaves, but unbelievable in the fall. This is one I'm always psyched when I can find a few. This is Inanashiki, the variegated one from Japan. So if I had a shade garden, this is in the top of my list for deciduous shrubs. That got some sweet foliage on it. And if I was out here in October, I would see purple, orange, yellow, pink, red, every color in the rainbow as that turns leaf. That is one of the prettiest plants you'll ever see in the fall. If you look that one up, you'll see online, like, oh wow, exactly what he means. It's every color in the rainbow when that turns color in the fall.
What size? So
that's pretty manageable. Again, I can prune Deciduous a little bit. If I let a plant like that go, you'll probably, again, get about as big as me with age. This one a little bit shorter on the variegated, but the green one about 6 feet. I'd probably say this would be easy to keep 4 feet by 4 feet or so. Yeah. So that's just one. I got one shot a year. I beg a guy, there's a collector down in Oregon I call every winter. All right, what you got for me? And so this is one I always beg him for because there's not a lot of these out. But he just brought me 10 of them, so that's one that probably won't last too long. Okay. So you'll see that last thing I put in bold. You know, everybody likes different shrubs. You know, I love flowers as much as everybody, but I love foliage color just as much. So a lot of times when I'm looking at options, you know, it's your yard. You may like more green, different shades of green, whatever your taste is. It's your yard when it comes down to it. But I just always encourage folks when they're looking at shrubs, especially deciduous ones, think about the fall a little bit and add some color. But in the growing season, you know, God, it'd be nice if I had a little purple here, or some red there, or some orange there, some gold here, or variegation. You know, you look at your options and it's like, you know, just another green shrub, or do I get something that has bright white or gold or different color on the variegation? That'll really pop in the landscape anywhere. Spring, sun, you know, shade, any spot in the yard. If you get the right plant at the right place and consider that foliage color, it might be a little nicer plant for you through all the seasons that way. Yes, they're dormant in the winter, but it's not the end of the world. We got plenty of green around here to keep everything looking lively. So conifers all over the place, green all over in the evergreen state. So getting some of that foliage color in there, especially in fall, will be awful nice. Okay. I think we probably, did I miss any? Somebody's got to be keeping track of it. I think I got them all on there.
The tall one.
Oh, I did miss one. So this is one we started bringing in more. So I don't know, has anyone tried any heptacodium? So they call that 7 sunflower. Now that's kind of another one like lilac, not kind of a tree and not kind of a shrub, but it's right in between. That's a brand new one. We really like the shape, called Temple of Bloom. That's got a good name to it. So that blooms in the summer. Great fragrance on it. And that's an interesting plant. You see an old heptacodium around. That's a showstopper in the garden. Peely bark, all kinds of cool stuff going during the year. But frankly, the original species was just kind of a little wild. There's a good term for it. Just kind of a little untamed. But some of these new ones, we get in that variety, and we get in one from Bailey called Tianxian, straight from China. And that, again, much more manageable in size and a very attractive little growth habit too. So nice summer bloom, decent fall color as well, cool peely bark in the winter. That's a good specimen plant if you wanted something a little bit different to add in probably the background of the garden. That one wouldn't be for the border for sure. Okay, I think you caught me on the only one I missed, right? So do you got any questions? I mean, I appreciate you taking the time today to come down. If you do some shopping, it's a sunny day finally. Yesterday it was a madhouse, so it's not too bad yet. But you just tell me you're at the class. We made this easy. All deciduous shrubs are 20% off, and I had him put hydrangeas on 20 and roses, which I just did this morning, because I'm like, you know what? We can't do a deciduous shrub class without adding those two. So any of that stuff today through Friday, you got a few days to do some shopping. We got sunshine, looks like all week except for one day. So, and even next weekend I saw a 7 in front of the temperature, so we'll see if it hits 70 finally. Yes?
So I want to put in 5 of the Father Gilia.
Yeah.
But I don't want the dwarf. I actually could take 5 feet, 6 feet.
So do the gardenia, because that's the one that'll get you the 4 or 5 feet. Now, I bet you Isley has that listed at, yeah, he puts it at 4 by 4, okay. But I think you'll get a little taller than that. So that's why I'm saying dwarf is such a tough word, because I think I say dwarf, your brain goes, oh, I got this little, exactly, and it's like, no, it's like dwarf burning bush is huge.
There was a variety called Mount Airy.
Yep.
And is that a bigger one?
Maybe just a touch taller than that. We can get you Mount Airy. If I don't have any, we can get you that one too.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a very worthwhile
and
cultivar.
The difference between gardenia and Mount Airy?
Same. Honestly,
height?
the same plant. Yeah. Somebody named it. It's got a fancy name. Mount Airy sounds lovely, right? Yeah. Better than what's that? Fothergilla? I don't know what that is. You say, look at my Mount Airy shrub. Ooh, I like that.
They're very cool.
There you go. Yeah, good plant. Yes.
What would be one that would bloom midsummer to fall that you might not have out here?
Well, some midsummer fall stuff. So you have sun?
Pardon?
You have sun?
Yes.
Part sun?
Yeah.
Well, again, I go back to the...
I have a north-facing hill, but in the summer, the sun comes up and
gets cooked pretty good.
Yeah.
So again, I go back to the first two: hydrangea, entire summer through fall. Rose if you have good sun. But I would look.
I have a lot of deer.
I would look at that crepe myrtle too. I mean, if you've got good sun, I mean that's an excellent option for something that doesn't bloom when a lot of other stuff is blooming around here. You know, crepe myrtle will give you, and again, we don't have to get the giant old ones, and it's not the same necessarily stuff we would fly down and see in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, down the southeast. Different stuff up here a little hardier varieties. If you waited just 2 weeks, we'll have a bunch, and I think you'll be surprised at the foliage color too, because there's some beautiful dark ones that come in. Because again, same nice hot colored flowers, but a lot of
crepe myrtle.
Yeah, a lot of choices here for stuff like 4 or 5 feet. Or again, if I want a little taller plant, we will have some of those as well. Yeah, I had a guy last year. I have a truck coming up from Georgia here in about 2 weeks with a bunch of crepe myrtle on it. But a guy knew his plants and said, I only know this is in Georgia. That's what I want. It's super hardy up here. He ordered some like 30-gallon, 10-foot tall monsters, 5 of them, because he's doing a whole row of them on his road. And they will look spectacular when they're flowering. But again, pink, white, red, hot, orange, coral. You can pick any color you like, and you'll find a good crepe myrtle. Yeah.
So I put in a dwarf crepe myrtle. It started to bud out this spring, and then it got zapped when we got that cold.
Okay.
So now it's just sitting there. When I, trim a little twig, there is green in there. Is there hope?
With crepe myrtle, you always want to prune a little bit coming out of winter anyway.
Okay.
So we just did ours. They didn't get quite all of it, I can see. But it's not like we're going to cut it in half. But I'm going to cut down the little stems about maybe 6 inches or so,
Okay.
and tidy it up a little bit, and then off we go. I'd be shocked if it didn't get going
Okay,
again.
it's not leafing
Yeah,
at all.
probably the only thing that would do crepe myrtle bad, it would be drainage. If we're too wet, that would be the one thing we want to keep. Crepe myrtle, again, nice drought tolerance, and that's a high and dry, full sun plant.
Okay.
You know, for 20 years, almost all my shopping trips for the nursery are down in Oregon. That's the nursery country for wholesale buyers. And so I drive down there, every street south of Portland's lined in crepe myrtles. And I'd be down there in August, like, I wish we could have those up there, but it was that extra 5, 10 degrees of heat that got them to bloom and thrive down there. I hate to say now, with the way the weather and warming has gone in our neck of the woods, we get enough heat now to have them flower. So it's always going to be like a mid-July, August, early September time frame, but you'll get great flowers on them. Yep. Yes.
A couple weeks ago on the new for 2023
Yep.
class, you mentioned a hydrangea that kind of
Fair.
leaked a little.
Fairy Trail Bride.
Okay,
Yeah.
have you gotten it in?
Not yet. Be pretty quick though. The hydrangeas are just starting to roll in. I got a feeling. Do you leave your name?
Not yet.
Well, leave your name, because a bunch of people have, and there's not that many plants the first year on the wish list in there. They'll get your name down. We'll call you when it shows up. But I'd guess probably mid-May. I'm thinking right around there. Fairy Trail Bride. It's that little weeping lace cap. I saw it in a hanging basket and was like, is that a hydrangea? Because it kind of hung out a little bit out of a hanging basket, which was kind of cool. Yep. All right. So you're going to get out of the 90-degree greenhouse here and go do some shopping in the fresh air. Man. Thanks for coming down today. I know it's busy weekends. The sun's out, so it's time to go home and work in the yard, right? Everybody else is probably out golfing today, right?
Yeah.